that this year, it seems inevitable that we're going to have some horrifying event as a result of that. I don't know what it is, but if you let anybody come across our border, things are going to happen. And that blood will be on the hands of Joe Biden. He won't notice because his hands are already so bloody. But I just want to say that if you have these kinds of policies, you're going to be guilty for that. I'm sitting here with Albin Sadar.
What? Who?
The author of a book titled Obvious.
Obvious.
And the subtitle is Seeing the Evil That's in Plain Sight and Doing Something About It. So, Albin, the subtext here is that there are still people, many of them self-professed Christians, who just say, meh, I don't want to be combative. I don't want to be one of those people. I used to be like that. I used to be, I don't want to be like, those hotheads that talk about this stuff. Because I don't want the grief that comes along with it. Yeah. Well, here's the problem. That's called being a coward. And if you're a coward, you have to repent. There's no way around it. If you don't repent, then you continue to be a coward. And I think that we have to understand that, especially if you live in the United States of America, God calls us to stand for what is right and true and good. People have fought in wars to preserve the Union, to preserve our way of self-government and liberty for all. It's a beautiful thing. And there are many people, and I write about it in my book, Letter to the American Church, who have this idea that I don't need to do anything like that. I just need to, stay in my little theological lane and talk about Jesus. And Jesus didn't just talk about Jesus. Jesus didn't just preach the gospel. Jesus spoke truth, uncomfortable truth that made a lot of people so angry at him that they wanted to kill him. And I think we have to embrace that and have to understand that God calls us not to love our lives, but to love him.
Yes.
And to give our lives over to his purposes. And when you're living in a crazy time like we are now, where the last election was stolen and where the left is no longer the party of Tip O'Neill, it's not even the party of Bill Clinton, they have become, in effect, cultural Marxist leftists who will do literally anything and who are intent, this is where it gets crazy, who are obviously intent in destroying America as we know it.
Yeah. And I try to deal with the Christian aspect and getting involved in politics with many chapters in my book, Obvious. One of them particularly is called, Does Thou Shalt Not Steal Apply to Elections? Christians, are you allowed to steal all kinds of things, but if you stole election, well, we'll give you a mulligan or a pass or whatever they say. So I address those things specifically, and I have a section here where I talk about mic drop moments of Jesus. Jesus will say something and boom, nothing else can be said because he just spoke truth, as it were, to power. If anyone spoke truth to power, it was Jesus, but he would do it in kind of a clever way. Sometimes, I don't know if this applies to Jesus, but sometimes you get a sense that some of it's whimsical. Almost like Jesus has a little wink in his eye when he even addresses the Pharisees and takes them up on things like whose image is on the coin. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God the things that are God's. It's like, gotcha.
It's so powerful. And part of the good news of what we're going through in America and in the world at this time is it's waking many people up who have been asleep.
Yes.
And I always say that there's kind of like, how do I put it? To some extent, you can wake up a little bit, and then you can wake up even more and even more and even more. And I think a lot of people were a little bit awake, but what happened with the election being stolen, they just said, now wait a minute. That's part of my story. It's like, now wait a minute.
Yeah.
What? We're not going to have that in America.
Well, see, that's the thing. I thought to myself, why do people still not believe 2020 was stolen? Why? And I thought to myself, you know why? I think the number one reason people would fall back on is that doesn't happen in America.
Right.
I think most people think that has third world countries, that happens over there, that happens in communism. They don't realize that we've already come down that far. They've been blindsided. And it's something Glenn Beck talked about years and years ago about the top down and bottom up. What's been happening is the top has been pressing down on us with their kind of communistic viewpoints. And from the bottom in the schools, grade schools even, they're starting to teach the communist stuff. So the kids growing up, they think, oh, this is okay, that America's a bad place. And from the top, it's like, oh yeah, we've done some bad things and we're gonna fundamentally transform this country. And before you know it, we're fundamentally transformed. A lot of people think it's like turning up the heat on the frog. Oh, it's getting warmer and warmer, but I'm okay. I'm okay.
Well, again, there have been things so bad that it's waking people out of their stupor. It's like they're sleepwalking and then suddenly, bang, they bump into a wall. For many people, the stolen election was that wall. For some people, the vaccine stuff, that you don't even question. You think, wait a minute. What do you mean? Don't question. That you're asking me to put something experimental in my body and the bodies of my children, my pregnant wife, and I'm not supposed to question. When they said don't question it, that's when a lot of people said, you know what? Now I'm going to question it because you told me I couldn't do that. This is America. We have every right to question it. The authoritarian lockdowns, on and on and on over the last 3 years. What Biden did, the nightmare, historical, unprecedented nightmare of what happened in Afghanistan, a border that is open, that anyone, any wicked actor, and there are plenty of them out there, they're saying, you know what? This would be a sweet time to come into the United States. Nobody's going to check because they're so dumb that they're not going to check. They're going to let me in. This is the willful destruction of America by Joe Biden and company. Yeah. And if you are not awakened by this, folks, you are absolutely part of the problem. There's just no way around it.
Yeah, and the least you can do is speak up. That's the absolute least you can do. If somebody says something that's really off, and it's off, you don't have to get in their face. You don't have to start an argument. You could just say, well, I don't think of it that way. And I love it when Jesus said, have you considered the lilies of the field? He said, just think about this. This is something that's right in front of your face. This is something very obvious to everybody, how the lilies grow and how God takes care of the sparrows and he takes care of this. You could just say to somebody, well, have you considered this viewpoint? And just let it sink in. You don't have to get mad or angry or bitter or jump down somebody's throat, because unfortunately nowadays it does not take a lot to, as they say, trigger somebody. I mean, we see it in our own family that you have to be careful. But you can also start with a little pushback, and maybe you can start to win somebody,
Well, I think, again, we've got to do what we can do. There are no guarantees, but you have to fight for what is right and good and true. You have to do that. You have to get involved, and you have to stop buying the lie that I'm not supposed to be involved politically. Imagine during the civil rights era, if you said, you know what, that's not my battle. I don't care if blacks are treated like second-class citizens. What a bum you would be if you said, oh, I just want to preach the gospel in my church. That would ruffle some feathers if I said that I think that we should do that, we should get involved in that. In the time of slavery. I mean, look, just as they hate Trump, they hated Lincoln, right? They basically said, well, he's a divider. Yeah. He's going to destroy this country. At some point, you have to make a decision.
Well, it's funny because you and I, being older, in our lifetime, we know this. We have never seen anyone hated so much as Donald Trump. No. In fact, he's hated so much, if you were to ask somebody, who's the second most hated person in your lifetime? I bet you they couldn't think of somebody. The guy's hated so much, you can't even think of a close second, right? Or even a
anybody
distant
on the right will be demonized. So George Bush, anybody were hated, Reagan were hated. And that's kind of the irony, right, is that they tried to play nice. Yeah. And they were, especially Bush, and they were absolutely excoriated viciously by the left. Trump, again, it's part of what got me, in a sense, involved, was I saw the way the press treated him, the way the media treated him, and I said, you know what? You don't have to agree with me, you don't have to agree with him, but you have to be fair. And they were so unbelievably unfair and vicious. I just said, this can't stand. This is America, and we need to deal with the facts. If the guy is a racist, if he is this or that or whatever, I'll be the first one to say I'm against that. I didn't suddenly change my view of adultery because I voted for Donald Trump.
Right.
But the point is that they demonized him and made up lies. The Russia collusion hoax, stuff we've never seen, a level of madness unleashed in America, and they pushed it and pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. That's when I said, look, this isn't right. If you're attacking somebody that much, that's kind of a tip-off to me. You've got something to hide.
Yeah, and it's just amazing to me, too, when I was in college and all that, the press was the one that would always examine and look into and say, is this true? It's like, the phrase misinformation, to me, when I was growing up, misinformation was never used the way it is today.
Right.
Whenever you said something that was crazy or off base, people would say, like, why are you saying that? Or who told you that? Or they'd like challenge you to prove. But now it's like misinformation. We don't even look into what you're saying. We don't challenge you. We don't say like, oh, you're an idiot.
Well,
we just say you're lying to us, and we don't even.
That's
have
like when they call the Hunter Biden laptop Russian disinformation. You have to laugh, folks. You got to laugh. We'll be right back talking to Albin Sadar. His book is called Obvious. Folks, I hate to interrupt, but I just don't want you to miss any of the content we're putting out on here. We've just got some amazing stuff. So would you do yourself a favor and hit the subscribe button so we can make sure you don't miss anything? I promise you, great stuff coming up. Hit the subscribe button. Thank you. Albin, we were talking about this.
Yeah.
We have to follow the logic. There's certain logical things, right? Number one, if you have a totally open border, without any doubt, evil people are going to take advantage of this. So I'm not talking about the people who want a better life for their families. You'd be crazy not to try to come to America under this current circumstances when they're saying, come on in. You'd be crazy not to. You can't blame those people. But I guarantee you, there are supremely evil people. The Chinese government is sending them across our border. You have Hamas operatives being sent across our border. You have all kinds of wicked people coming across our border. I would say that this year, it seems inevitable that we're going to have some horrifying event as a result of that. I don't know what it is, but if you let anybody come across our border, things are going to happen, and that blood will be on the hands of Joe Biden. He won't notice because his hands are already so bloody, but I just want to say that if you have these kinds of policies, you're going to be guilty for that. It's on your hands.
But they'll somehow twist it that it's somehow Trump is behind all this.
And
that's the thing, too.
Brings up the second thing. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? Why are they so scared of Donald Trump?
Yeah. Why?
I'll tell you why. Because he knows where the bodies are buried, and he has nothing to lose by fighting against the deep state and these wicked forces. And so what will they do? They have done just about everything to keep him from running. They are scared to death, which should tell you everything.